Hey, Pittsburgh. There are some incredibly creative people around our city, and we're here to meet them, learn what they do, and how they create. I'm Alan Fear, and this is the Pittsburgh Creators Podcast. We are here with Fran Flaherty. Please welcome Fran. Hi, Fran. How are you doing this evening?
Hello. Hi, Alan. I'm good.
For our audience who might not be familiar, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to?
So I'm an artist. I consider myself a Pittsburgher. I moved to Pittsburgh from Manila, Philippines, back in 1992. So I've lived in Pittsburgh for 30 years with the intention of going to Pitt. And I met my husband at Pitt. We got married and started a family. And so here I am in my forever home, which I had no idea. I was an island girl from the Philippines. How would I know I was going to end up in a place that makes Heinz ketchup, right?
Wow. Yeah.
I've been working with my art practice for quite a while now. I started at Carnegie Mellon, and things just kind of, grew from there.
You have so many irons in the fire, if you will, in terms of just projects. Could you tell us a little bit about what some projects that you're working on right now, or that some exhibitions maybe that you have going on?
You're right. There's many, many irons in the fire. My husband reminds me all the time. He's like, "What you got going on now?" I'm in a group show at the University of Toronto, Scarborough. It's called #Crypt Ritual. It's a very interesting show. It includes artists from all over the world that talk about their the rituals that they take or that they go through to deal with their disability. I'm deaf, and I know people in the podcast are going to, wait a minute, you're deaf? How can you be in this podcast? And how can you listen to Alan? And that valid question. It's a valid question. I have deafness is a range, of course. I wear 2 hearing aids because I can't wear 3. I'm actually waiting for you to laugh.
Caught it. I definitely caught it.
Okay. But a lot of people, when I introduce myself that way to kind of, break the ice a little bit, and I get half and half to respond. Some people tighten up and go, yeah. Is that a joke? Did she just make a deaf joke? Is that right. Okay? And the other half are like you, totally get it and be like, yeah, deaf people can make jokes too. And my kind of deafness is I do hear with my hearing aids. Right now, I'm connected from my hearing aids to a Bluetooth device that's connected to the computer. So you're being fed right into my ears, and this is why I can hear you very well. So that the subject of that of crypt ritual is about the rituals that I go through as a deaf person living in the United States. And that's one. Then I'm going to jump right back to Pittsburgh. It's the biggest exhibition I've had so far. It's called Deaf Brown American Mom. And it's at Space Gallery, downtown, 812 Liberty Avenue. And it's up from March 18th to May 15th. And my first solo show in 5 or 6 years.
A large majority of your work is influenced by your personal experience. Can you talk a little bit about how that informs your work, especially in these current exhibitions, because they do seem so personal,
Yeah, this is, somebody said to me when they walked through the exhibition, somebody said, I should acknowledge Madame Dolores. She said, Christiana Dolores, she's a fellow not white member. She walked into the exhibition and she said, "I'm in your brain." Again, and then my personal experiences. So it's really divided into 3, maybe 4 parts. I don't know. One is being a mother, what my experiences are as a mother living in the United States, what my experience are as an immigrant, a Filipino-Chinese immigrant, living in Pittsburgh, what my experience are as a deaf and disabled person, and a not white person. And so the exhibit is kind of organized in that way. When you walk into the exhibit, the first thing that you see is a big brown American flag. It's about 10, 12 feet tall. It's not red, white, and blue. It's brown, brown, and brown. And that painting, it's painted on raw canvas, and that stemmed from my a conversation with my son, Lucas, when he was, I don't know, maybe fourth grade, and they were studying history and segregation. So he asked me, he says, Mom, what is segregation? And I'm like, well, it's a time in the United States history where Black people and white people weren't able to do things together, go to school together. And so he said to me, what's white people? What's Black people? He just had no idea. And I think I have it in a Facebook post somewhere when he did it, because I was just like pretty taken by it. And my children do that to me. They talk to me and they tell me these things that really just open up my mind to so many things. And that's one of those things. And so a couple of days after, when I guess it sunk into him, he said to me, Mom, we're all just shades of brown, And yes, we are. And so that's how this painting came about. It was a really one of those times, I think in like 2018, where things were just really rough around here. And it was that's part of it. And then as you go around the exhibit, there are the Filipino Chinese influences that talk basically about colonization, reclamation of colonization. It's a big subject right now. And for me, a lot of the my heritage is, my Filipino and Chinese heritage of all, it's the colonization is included in that, the influence of the Spanish and the Americans that came into the Philippines, of course. And, how do you navigate that right now? One group of people taking over another. And yet that, we're all the mix of all the peoples everywhere. And so that's part of the piece as well. And I wanted to illustrate that. So it was a reclamation of a lot of documentation of the first peoples of the Philippines, Yeah, and of course, there's a lot of deaf and disabled work in there. There's a collection of work of things that people have said to me. And of course, there's the motherhood part. I founded Anthropology of Motherhood, which is a project. It's an ongoing curatorial project about caregiving and the culture of care.
Let's take a quick break to talk about this podcast and how you can support our endeavors to showcase Pittsburgh's creators. The Pittsburgh Creators Podcast is supported by the Pittsburgh Creators Project. You can learn more at www.pittsburghcreators.org. Reach out through our website for more information about how you can sponsor an episode and keep hearing from creatives in Pittsburgh. If you know a creator we should speak to, let us know. Back to the interview. A lot of your work is multimodal or multifaceted, like you were speaking of the Anthropology of Motherhood, where there's a play space and there's a changing table and there's all these things and all of these things that come together to make one kind of cohesive unit. And I think it's fascinating how that translates.
Well, human beings are complicated animals. I mean, we are just we're the most complicated animal that there is. And there's so many parts of our lives that we have to recognize that we are complicated people and we are multifaceted. And oftentimes we like to sort of like compartmentalize people, like, oh, okay, so you're a mom, oh, you're a dad, or oh, you're a musician, you're a musician, you're a percussionist, but you're also now a podcast interviewer or host. I mean, and it's just we are more than just the one thing we label people. And it's convenient to say, oh, yeah, I'm a doctor, or yeah, I mean, I'm not a doctor. That's my brother. Or my husband, oh, I'm a mathematician. But it's not. My husband's so much more than a mathematician. He's an ultra marathon runner. He's Irish Catholic. He's a grandpa. I mean, so yeah, so there's just many facets of our lives. And I don't think it's fair to just, for an artist to go in and say, well, this is what I do. Maybe fair is not the right word, but you know what I mean.
What got you started on your path to where you are now? I think everyone, as a child, has that spark of creativity. What really sparked your creativity and led you down this road to where you are?
Wow, you're taking me back. When I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. And my dad had an architect friend. His name's Jimmy Marquez, in the Philippines. And he's one of my dad's best friends at the time. And he was an amazing architect. And he just saw me drawing one day. I was just drawing. I was actually copying a house from some book. It was like a Tudor house. And I don't even remember how I got this book. It's like there are no Tudor houses in the Philippines. It's too hot.
Right.
So I was drawing it, and he said to me, "You're really good at that." I said, "I am?" He said, "Yeah, you should think about becoming an artist and drawing." And that's all it took. Just one person with an encouraging statement that you're really good at that. You should really try to do more of it. And by the time I was 12 years old, I started oil painting classes. And the funny thing is, in college, I had several majors, like 10, because I was really fighting the artist thing. And it just kept bringing me back to art. And, when I started accepting that and saying, okay, and not fighting it, things just kind of fell into place.
Wow. It's fun to think about how one person making a comment like that can really change your life. And I think you had mentioned this before, the idea of culture of care. Sometimes we don't realize the impact of what we say or on our actions. And just that not necessarily coming from a place of empathy to start, but understanding that through your words and saying, hey, that's really great. Like, you're doing awesome at this. How much of an impact that can make. And I think it's really cool to hear your story and to hear just that, it's like a spark. It's right there. It's amazing.
I really agree with that.
With so many things that are going on in your life, how do you keep a fresh perspective on everything? Is there anything that, sparks you on a daily basis and keeps you going?
Honestly, my family always, whatever I do, I feel like I'm contributing to my children's future, my family's future. Now my grandson. I want to leave. I want to leave the world a better place, or at least try to have for him, or for them.
What are some things about Pittsburgh that inspires you?
I've always considered Pittsburgh to be a family-friendly city, kid-centered city. I mean, and I know a lot of people who come back, who have grown up in Pittsburgh, left and come back to raise their families, Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas. And I've always liked that. I've always, I connect with people like that. But Pittsburgh is not perfect, of course. There is still a lot of racism in Pittsburgh, both systemic, personal. There's a lot of inequality in terms of like housing, and there's still some food deserts in Pittsburgh, surprisingly, right? And so there's a lot of work to be done in Pittsburgh, and that's okay, because I think there'll always be work to be done. But I think it's important that we recognize that and try to contribute to improving
What are some things that you have coming up, and how can we follow you and keep track of what you're doing?
So there's a lot of things percolating in the background. Hopefully, we will have a sister project, a multinational project coming up, public art project coming up soon with Wales, disability arts in Wales. That's in the books. The Not White Collective has an exhibit coming up in the fall as well. And I am organizing many different exhibits for artists with disabilities around the Pittsburgh area. So yeah, if you like log on to my website, franflaherty.com, or my Instagram, FC Flaherty, and Facebook, you'll see all of the up and coming activities.
So, any parting words to up and coming or young artists and creators, to just in terms of motivation or something that was inspiring to you?
Honestly,
I know it's a hard one too. I apologize.
Getting things done, that's half the battle, right? Of your creative practice, showing up and doing something. You could decide to, do like a quick sketch, and you're like, it looks horrible. And that's okay. That's okay, because then you know that you've done something that you might want to improve on. But it's important that we keep doing it, because art keeps us human. We're not just clocking in and clocking out into places and make money to survive. Art keeps us connected to each other.
Well, on that note, I just want to thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm very appreciative to have the opportunity to talk to you this evening, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Pittsburgh Creators Podcast is supported by the Pittsburgh Creators Project. You can learn more at www.pittsburghcreators.org. If you know a creator we should speak to, let us know by reaching out to us through our website. The podcast is produced and theme composed by Robert Traw. Special thanks to Greta Ziwi and Jesse Noss of Red Cayman Studios here in Pittsburgh for their post-production work. I'm Alan Fear. We'll see you next time.